So I was excited. Trump said he was going to pull out of Syria. And then I see this tweet. It says Trump gets called an anti-interventionist because he criticized U.S. intervention in Iraq and Syria during his campaign. Then he gets into office and he dramatically ramps up U.S. intervention literally everywhere, including Iraq and Syria. No, I don't believe that. So here is Mike Preisner and Abby to tell me and you all the stuff that you didn't know about Trump's interventionism. I thought he was actually anti-interventionist, and especially because of his plan to want to pull out of Afghanistan and Syria. But please inform us.
Sure. So during the campaign, Trump was the anti-interventionist candidate. Obviously, he was pushing Hillary from the left. He was talking about everything from Goldman Sachs donations to the Iraq War. He continued to talk about how the Iraq War was a disaster. He talked about how he didn't want regime change. So it was really fascinating to just kind of comprehensively look at his policies for the past 2 years, which is what we did in the first iteration of this series. But the second one kind of threw us for a loop because as we're working on the series, Trump announces this surprise withdrawal. And as we talked about, the liberals just reacted from the fucking right.
Yes.
Siding with war criminal Mattis.
Yes.
And the Pentagon saying this is dangerous. So it was really hard to kind of decipher and unravel what's really happening. But you have to look at the numbers of the troops that he actually deployed. You know, through all of his rhetorics and the tweets and all the Putin meddling, there's shit going on. You have to actually look at the actions, not the rhetoric. And he deployed twice as many troops in Afghanistan that Obama left with. And in Syria, Obama left with a little under 300 special ops advisors on the ground, and Trump hit the gas and increased that to a little bit over 2,000. So the troops that he is removing from both Afghanistan and Syria are troops that he himself added. So those are the troops that he's removing, quote unquote. Obviously, the withdrawal keeps changing. Now we see John Bolton on an apology tour in Israel with Netanyahu begging them, saying it doesn't mean anything. We're still going to keep troops here to surround Iran. So you see a lot of like inner turmoil within the establishment with John Bolton because Iran is really the big prize. He doesn't really necessarily care about Assad. But then when you look at bombing, that's where it really gets tricky because we're looking at drone strikes, all around the world. He's increased that 400%.
So you're saying Trump ran anti-interventionist,
right,
which is to the left of Hillary.
Right.
And he gets in, he does the exact opposite. He actually, what was the ramp up of drone bombings?
400%.
That's amazing.
It's amazing.
Because Obama was doing it at a pretty good clip himself.
Right.
And so Trump comes in, actually does the exact opposite. And I'm sure his base doesn't even know that, do they?
No. And because he spoke out of both sides of his mouth, and he did talk about escalating a major war with ISIS. And so he talked about bombing the shit out of not only alleged terrorists, but their families, too.
Yeah. Remember that?
So it's like he threw out so many things. He threw so much shit. It was like whatever stuck is what people paid attention to. But looking back, the civilian casualties are the most horrifying part because troops or no troops, and I don't want to discount the horror of actually having U.S. troops on the ground anywhere, obviously what damage comes with that. But ramping up the bombing 50% in Iraq and Syria and causing a 250 almost % increase in civilian casualties. Right now, fatalities are the highest they've ever been in the Afghanistan war. The Moab was dropped.
So the Moab was the biggest bomb in the history that wasn't nuclear.
Non-nuclear.
Yeah. And what about, talk about Mosul now. Did that happen under Trump, Mosul?
Yeah, so that's the thing is we get into it in depth in the episodes. I hope people watch them. But the big thing is, with Syria, Trump takes office. He basically changes rules of engagement, tells the Pentagon, you don't need to ask permission anymore. Bomb whatever the fuck you want.
That's right.
So they massively increased bombing, slaughtered thousands and thousands of civilians at extreme, 250% increase is no small thing when you're talking about U.S. civilian casualties because the U.S. is already killing quite a lot of civilians all the time. So Trump comes into Syria, spends 2 years carpet bombing the country, deploys 10 times the number of troops Obama had sent. I mean, he escalated that number times 10, maybe more. We don't know because the Trump administration said, we're not telling you how many troops are in Syria and Iraq anymore. Like, it's not your business. It's our business only. So there could be 3,000 or more soldiers in Syria anyway. And then at the end, he's saying, okay, I'm withdrawing these troops. It's like, dude, you added them and you just carpet bombed the country. It's like, we didn't give Obama credit for withdrawing troops from Afghanistan after he sent 100,000 troops to Afghanistan. Like, you're withdrawing the troops that you sent and you're only withdrawing them because you've just basically leveled the entire country. And so from a strategic standpoint, I would see why they want to do it. Russia and Iran and Syria have locked down the ISIS problem. They are in control of most of the country. And the U.S. forces really are only like literally in some places 1 mile from the border of countries where they have bases, Jordan, Iraq, Turkey. So yeah, they're just leaving these vast empty deserts where U.S. forces are to be like, all right, we're just going to go back over the border here. And I can say there's been this withdrawal. But the thing I was getting to with Mosul, your point on Mosul, is that what went totally under the radar is Trump said, I'm withdrawing from Syria, and he went to Iraq, at a surprise trip to Iraq, and gave that speech. And in Iraq, he said, we're withdrawing from Syria, and we are committed to staying in Iraq and fighting in Iraq. So what, with the Iraq war that everyone hated, that everyone wanted to shut down, and Obama was forced to withdraw all these troops, Trump's already doubled the number of troops in Iraq, and it might go more. And the scary thing about that is where there's a big possible flashpoint for an escalation and death and destruction, not just by the U.S., but of U.S. soldiers. Because right after Trump went to Iraq, the Iraqi parliament had an emergency meeting and voted the U.S. military has to get the fuck out of our country. Just days before, all of the Iraqi militias, a lot of which are anti-government also. I mean, the Iraqi government is no good government. All these different Iraqi militias who were against ISIS, but also against the Iraqi government said, we're going to start fucking shooting U.S. soldiers because you guys got to get the fuck out of our country, especially now that ISIS has been largely defeated. And so that could, he said he's withdrawing from Syria while reaffirming his commitment to escalating and indefinitely continuing the occupation of Iraq, which could right now, it's chill, but it could blow up at any second, considering that literally every Iraqi wants the U.S. military out.
Well, I can't wait to somebody in the I hope somebody primaries him, and then they get on a debate stage with him and they go, you blew it in Iraq. You blew it, just like he did to Jeb.
Exactly.
I can't wait for some. You blew it. Why don't you get us out? You can't get us out. You're the president. Pull us out. Like somebody needs to get in his face on this.
Yeah.
Like kind of in the prime minister's questions kind of a way. And so that saddens me. I thought like the one silver lining with Trump is that he was going to de-escalate around the world. His instinct was to pull out. In fact, Woodward in his book even makes fun of him for saying, why don't we just pull out of Afghanistan?
Right.
So
I mean, yeah, and the thing with Syria too is that they're still pursuing a policy of aggression towards Syria. They're still sanctioning the hell out of the country to weaken the government, weaken the population. They're still bombing the hell out of the country. I mean, just the end of December, that they bombed Syria like 500 different times. Just the last 2 weeks in December. But ISIS is defeated. Well, if ISIS is defeated in
then
Syria,
why are we
still
still
need
bombing?
to mess with it, right?
And so, Israel bombed Assad on Christmas Day, which is not happening without Trump's
and they're
approval.
using the cover of commercial airliners too. Did you know that?
Yeah, right. And so it's easy, like from the military standpoint of the imperialists, they can afford to concede some territory in Syria that's near bordering countries where they have bases and troops anyway, to say we've done this withdrawal while beefing up, doing more bombing and just beefing up forces in surrounding areas. There's still a policy of aggression. A policy that would be any interventionist policy would be self-determination for Syria. We're not going to sanction you. We're not going to bomb you. We're just going to get out and just let you sort your shit out as a country.
Yeah,
I mean, that's no intervention.
The real face of Trump's foreign policy has been with the sanctions because, of course, the U.S. empire wields sanctions to bend countries to its will all the time. And you look at the sanctions he's employed, it's already hundreds more in his first 2 years in Obama's entire tenure. I mean, all over Latin America has just debilitated their ability to, deal with an economic recovery in terms of Venezuela. Nicaragua's suffering. Cuba, of course, the reversal of the normalization there. But Syria, 287 sanctions alone on Syria, 80 on the DPRK. It just goes round and round. And these are debilitating sanctions that really are an act of war, separate from any sort of militarism. So it's pretty devastating. And I was just going to mention that a couple days after he announced the troop withdrawal from Afghanistan, what was fascinating is Blackwater put a full page ad out. And I think in Military Times, maybe not, but they said, we're coming. Like a threat almost, like we're fucking back and we're coming. And we know Trump's fascist anti-Muslim advisor, Eric Prince, is now, who knows? I'm saying is this could be a privatization of the Afghanistan
That's what
war.
we were worried about was that we've heard reports that Trump will pull out soldiers and put in mercenaries and say he's saving money because they don't have to pay benefits of these mercenaries forever and blah, blah, blah. But in fact, you are paying their benefits because most of them are already soldiers and they just re-enlist. Now you're just paying them way more than you would pay a soldier. Right?
Oh, absolutely. No, because they have less restrictions. So it's like you're getting your money's worth. They can go out and kill a bunch. There's not going to be war crimes trials for mercenaries, except in the most extreme cases. And so, yeah, that was Trump's favorite plan for Afghanistan was the privatization of the war, which,
of it.
amazingly could unleash more brutality than American special forces are in Afghanistan. But, it's a similar thing. I mean, this isn't out of a respect for the sovereignty of a country or the belief that you should not intervene in countries. It's just changing the strategy of that intervention and just pivoting forces somewhere else and just having a different approach to dominating and controlling the country through violence and through manipulation.
But so do you think... I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, it's been very confusing and also hard to sort through because the entire Democratic Party establishment is literally fighting him from the right. And so you're like, okay, can we all agree that removing troops is good?
Yeah. No.
And they can't.
They can't admit that.
And
no.
So you have to like battle that first. Like, this is a good thing. Here's what's really behind the scenes. And it's just been a complete shit show.
Yeah. And the last thing I'll say is, I mean, when you asked about Mosul, I mean, that is just one place where U.S. committed serious war crimes under Trump. I mean, the point you're bringing up was that something called the Mosul massacre, which happened under Trump, and because Trump gave the most lax bombing rules of engagement to the force on the ground, that like about 200 to 500 civilians were killed in one series of airstrikes in a civilian area in Mosul. I mean, that's possibly the biggest in the entire Iraq War, loss of civilian life in a single strike. The entire Iraq War, Trump topped the number of civilian casualties in a single strike. And so the idea that, you know, Trump's announcement of withdrawing troops from Syria, he says, we won, we beat them badly, we beat ISIS. And so now we're going to get out of Syria and we're going to focus on Iraq. ISIS started because of the invasion of Iraq, the occupation of Iraq, the imposition of a sectarian government on Iraq against international law. That's what created ISIS to form. And so you're going to pull out of Syria because you've beaten Iraq to go back to Iraq to focus on what created ISIS in the first place. It's just, I think, headed down a very, very bad road.
He's even sanctioned Libya. It's like, is there even a fucking functioning government in Libya? Like, what are you sanctioning? Like, what are you even?
Right. No,
I don't even understand.
It's a bunch of freaking militias and warlords,
it's like
right?
a slave territory.
So it's sad.
Market.
So I just want to, what could we say to, if you are a Trump supporter, right, and you're casually watching events, you probably still love him. But let's say if you're a Trump supporter and you watch this show, that means you're getting information. What is it that you could possibly still be happy about that Trump's doing? Because he's not doing this anti-interventionist thing.
Right.
His economic policies are just giving tax breaks to the richest people in the country and hoping they trickle down. They never fucking do. What has he done for people?
Literally,
Nothing.
the only thing he's done is just be funny and provide some comedic relief about just doing, standing up to people and criticizing them in a good way. But no, there is absolutely no merits to his actual policies, economically or foreign policy. Yeah, I think that Trump supporters who are still kind of buying into the anti-interventionist thing, it's just. The research is there, but it's really hard to dig through. So we've kind of done it for you so you can kind of see, here's what he's actually done.
Yeah, I watched your video and it's really informative. I remember him ordering that bombing raid in Yemen right away when he became president that killed that girl.
Right.
And so I'm like, oh yeah, there's a war crime. Okay, but I guess I just forgot about it. So it's great.
The only thing I would say is, I've had a lot of arguments with people who are like, this exact same thing would be happening under Obama, and my answer is no, because we showed actually that he has ramped up even Obama's policies just to an unbelievable degree, from Iran to Venezuela to. Even though what's happening right now in Syria is more complicated, it doesn't detract from all of the other horrible shit that he's exacerbating around the world.
Yeah, and it's surprisingly, these two videos that we just released, I received numerous replies to them saying, I supported Trump until I saw this. And so that I've actually never received a response on anything but that. So I feel like it is revealing a lot of things that were confusing about what Trump was doing, because, there are, people supporting for whatever reason. But I think that his withdrawal from Syria is appealing to a sector of his base, because right-wing isolationism is a thing. It's just different than anti-militarism and anti-imperialism that we all share. And that the logic of right-wing isolationism is, we should still be doing stuff abroad. But why do we waste the blood of good American white boys when we can just bomb the shit out of them? And that's why he campaigned on, I'm going to bomb the shit out of them and get the good boys out so they don't have to die. We can just drop that. It was an argument before the Iraq War. Like people like David Duke and stuff, they were against the invasion of Iraq because they were like, well, we can just turn Iraq into a parking lot, like with a bomb. Why do we have to send our good boys to go lose their lives there? And so this section of Trump, the anti-interventionists that really
they want the
support
war on the
Trump,
border.
They see there's a real war here at home against immigrants, and why do we need to waste our men fighting ISIS when we can just drop lots and lots of bombs on them. And
Which
that's
is-
what the policy that he implemented for the
is
most part.
super interesting that right after he announced this withdrawal, then he talks about, he shows the border wall, this prototype, and he's really focusing on now we have to do the war at the border. But we're ending these endless wars abroad, but just really signaling to that base of
The real
Wow.
wars
the
at
David
home.
Dukes.
The real wars at
the
home.
So I
world.
didn't know that about the different kind of. See,
Yeah.
again, I'm learning. I didn't know the different kind of interventionism, and there's that kind of right wing nationalist version of it.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, the
Wow.
thing is, we just have to fight. We have to build an anti-war movement, and all the Trump people who bought in thinking that he was anti-intervention. I think this really shows us it does not matter who the president is. This system will continue. And Trump's been pretty much nothing but a gift to the military-industrial complex. And that has to come with us, the political actors who are going to generate movements in the street. It won't come from anyone from the top or either ruling class party. So it really has to come from us.
As if they're restarting the Iraq War. It's like, how is this not a story? He's like restarting the Iraq War.
I know.
Remember that thing? That thing was crazy.
How is this not a story? That's a great
God.
point. If you like our content, looking for ways to help support, here's a great mug or a t-shirt or a thing. You can get it right underneath there, or you can become a patron to our show. We give you hours of bonus material every week. Plus, come see a live Jimmy Dore show. Go to jimmydorecomedy.com for a link for all our live shows. And make sure you're subscribed. I know it sounds crazy, but they unsubscribe people from our show all the time, and you have to click that bell so they send you a notice when we drop a video. Thanks for your support.